John Lennon and Paul McCartney were the brains behind the Beatles, and much of the band's music is attributed to the collaboration between the two of them. Before they became famous, the two had an agreement that they would each get credit for one song written by each of them while they were in the band, regardless of whether the songs were created together or separately. Paul and John's complementary yet stylistically distinct approaches resulted in an unparalleled album of music. The sparks flew between John and Paul. Opposite poles produce energy, as Wilfred Mellers put it in 1972's Music and Musicians magazine, describing their collaboration. John's fiery iconoclasm was tempered by Paul's lyrical grace, while Paul's wide-eyed charm was toughened by John's resilience. Back in the day, John and Paul would often be found in the same room, collaborating on song ideas. Their level of collaboration decreased throughout the years. Instead, they would write separately, present their work to one other, and then make final edits together. Disputes became commonplace throughout the Beatles sessions in the 1960s, especially during the recording of Let It Be and the White Album. This was due in large part to creative differences. Paul and John would often compose songs separately at this stage before collaborating in the studio. But once John quit the Beatles, he was especially critical of Paul's solo efforts. Let It Be and the rest of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band from 1967 were total turns-offs for him. But on the May 1969 non-album single, The Ballad of John and Yoko, the two artists appeared to be enjoying working together despite their animosity. While on his honeymoon in France, John composed the song, which celebrates his marriage to Yoko Ono. Upon his arrival back in the UK, John wasted little time seeing Paul at his London residence in an effort to persuade him to make the hasty decision to go to Abbey Road and record it. In his book entitled The Rough Guide to the Beatles, Chris wrote, "Despite their personal and business disagreements being at their height, McCartney agreed one has to wonder whether Lennon would have offered McCartney the same support in a reverse situation, and, with George out of the country and Ringo filming The Magic Christian, it was up to just John and Paul to make the music, the first Beatles session in 8 weeks." Paul and John were at odds about a number of things at that time, such as the band's artistic direction, Yoko's presence during studio sessions, the challenges of the Get Back sessions, and the hiring of Alan Klein as the new manager of the band. On a song that had great personal significance for him, though, he was nevertheless eager to lend a hand to his bandmate. Paul was aware that people were being cruel to John, and he simply wanted to put things right for him. Yoko subsequently stated of the tape, "One of Paul's best qualities is his fraternal nature." In 1966, John made the controversial claim that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Paul had reservations about the song due to his concerns about the controversy it produced. John had gathered the band in May 1968 to proclaim himself as the living embodiment of Jesus Christ, and The Ballad of John and Yoko had several allusions to Christ.